day. Actually, I know where to find them. I know where to find them, but I should revisit them. You can view them at super speed, right?
I think so.
Welcome everyone. Pardon the chit chat. This is the August 2024 meeting of the City of Somerville's Commission on Energy Use and Climate Change. I would love to start with some introductions. I am speaking slowly to allow Julie to return since she will be taking minutes.
I can start, Larry, and I'll
Okay.
pass them to Julie. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm Larry Yu. I live in the Davis Square area. I am the chair of the commission, and I, by day, work at the Bridgespan Group here in Boston. Ramon, would you like to introduce yourself?
Ramon Bueno. I live in the Brick Bottom District and been a commissioner for a number of years. I can't quite remember. And I'm glad to be here. I have to leave by 8 tonight, so unfortunately, I'll have to get the recording later.
Feel free to popcorn around, Ramon.
Julie?
Hi, Julie Wood. I'm on the commission. I live in Teal Square. And I work at Charles River Watershed Association for my regular job. Is that all we were saying?
That's enough.
Excellent. Sorry so much. Rang my doorbell and the dog was freaking out. Did you go, Eliza?
No, I can go next. Hi, Eliza Johnston. I live in the Davis Square area and I am an economist at ICF by day. And I will pass it on to Courtney.
Hi, I'm Courtney Coslow. I live in Magoon Square in Winter Hill, and I work at Beacon Communities where I develop large-scale multifamily affordable housing development. And I'll pass it on to Alexis.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexis Washburn. I'm also a commissioner. I live in Teal Square. When I'm not a commissioner, I work at Emerald Cities Collaborative, which is a clean energy nonprofit, and I'll pass it to Emily.
Hey everyone, my name is Emily Sullivan. I'm the Climate Change Program Manager for the city's Office of Sustainability and Environment.
Thank you, Emily. If you wouldn't mind, we usually like to walk through and allow our attendees to introduce themselves as well.
Amazing. Thank you, Larry. Yes. So Grace, I'm going to allow you to unmute and introduce yourself if you'd like to.
Yes. Grace Hall. I live in Teal Square and I'm a retired chemist who's interested in climate concerns.
Thank you, Grace. John, I'm going to unmute you and allow you to talk and introduce yourself if you'd like to.
There, now you can hear me, right?
Yes,
Never know how to do that. Anyway, Teal Square. I'm a retired environmental attorney from Michigan, and I just have an interest in the environment for many years.
Great. Welcome.
Lindsay, I'm going to allow you to talk so you can unmute if you want to introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Lindsay Luke. I live down in Winter Hill. I'm retired. I'm a member of Mothers Out Front, and I mean, my profession, my time was split between finance and housing.
Thank you, Lindsay. William, I'm going to allow you to talk if you want to unmute and introduce yourself. And no worries, William, if you don't want to introduce yourself. But we can move to Christina. You just joined, but I'll allow you to talk. And if you want, you can unmute and introduce yourself. All right, no worries. So it looks like that's it, Larry.
Wonderful. Thank you, Emily. Exciting. We have a full agenda today, but I actually don't think we will I think we will hit everything on our agenda. Because I don't think there's anything that will be extremely time consuming. Well, the one thing we won't hit is the approval of the July meeting minutes. I don't think we have them yet. So whoever took those minutes would love to have them when you get a chance, and we'll just approve them for next meeting. So thank you for that. I will not call anyone out by name. First item on our agenda is a discussion on climate forward and implementation and next steps. So Emily, thank you for being on the call today.
Yeah, sure. So this is going to be a pretty similar update to the update that Christine provided in July. So right now the city is internally coordinating around the implementation for Climate Forward. And so we're working on developing task forces based on the 5 topic areas of Climate Forward. But that's not to say that we aren't also simultaneously working on like actions and project work identified in Climate Forward. So we're starting up some work around the rental registry that will be announced later this month. But so that's really all the update that I have for you tonight. But I'll take any questions.
Welcome attendees as well. If you have questions on Somerville Climate Forward and how the launch went and what the next steps are, feel free to raise your hand.
Yeah,
Okay.
can you just give us a very quick high-level description of the task forces and so on?
Yes, of course. So the task forces will be oriented around the 5 topic areas of Climate Forward. So that's buildings and energy, transportation, mobility, community health and resiliency, natural resources and waste, and leadership. And so the task forces will be tasked with the implementation of the actions identified in those sections of the Climate Forward plan. I think the task forces are a more formal framework for implementation. So it's just, I think, showing or bringing together the correct stakeholders internally within city departments that need to work together in order to implement the actions identified in the plan.
So it's primarily staff from the city who in some fashion or another are relevant to the different action items. Are there not within the scope of the task forces, where do the engagement of groups that were involved in the process with the update, where does that fit in?
Yeah, of course. That's a great question, Ramon. So we have, so Naomi and I primarily did most of the outreach for the development of, or the update, I guess, for Climate Forward. So we've reached out to a lot of the organizations that we worked with to update the plan. And so like last night, I attended a Climate Coalition of Somerville meeting to chat with those folks who had given input during the planning process to talk a little bit more about implementation and how community engagement really, I think, impacted the plan, like it impacted what was in it, what was proposed in the plan. And so we have reached out to those folks, but we did it kind of like in May. So we're gonna do it again in the fall, like in case the summer kind of prevented people from being like, yeah, come to my meeting, right? Because a lot of groups might not meet. So we'll reach back out to those folks in the fall. And we're also having a, I told Larry this last night, but we are having a, we're working with Somerville Public Libraries to do a photo gallery for kind of displaying the community art that was created during the April launch event. And so I'm looking for that link right now. But we totally encourage folks to attend. It's kind of like our first general event since we have updated the plan. And so that's just going to be, we're going to have a reception at the Central Library in September, and then the photo gallery will move to the East and West libraries after that.
You know, one of the things that struck me in reviewing the document, especially when went to the blueprint on the subset of actions that are in the blueprint. And what I think that's, I think very impressive and valuable is when it has for each element, it has who the internal collaborators are in the city. But also what I found really very good is the tools and resources, whether they're financial or technical resources, because it's, I mean, it's a shame that if it just remains documented, and because for people who are interested in this, not just people who are going to be working on the task forces and all that, but especially on the community groups and all that, it seems like maybe not all, but a number of them might really benefit and be interested in getting familiar with all of those things. So the internal collaborators, but also the tools and resources that they can explore on their own, in addition to in collaboration with what the city is doing with the update. So I'm hoping that there's a way to somehow, whether it's in the outreach in the fall or whatever, as people start coming together, to just make sure that they take a look at those, and if they need, I don't know, assistance in like pursuing any of them that they want to explore in further detail. So it would be really a plus and a value added step.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, just quick follow-up question on that, Emily. Is the meeting in the fall an update, or will there be call to action invitations? I guess I'm also maybe just wheels turning with this commission, thinking about growing our membership. I don't know if we have any vacancies technically right now, but maybe we could promote the commission and get some more folks involved that way too. But I don't know if you already have ideas on what is the agenda for that, or if it's just an update or.
So I think it's like a little bit of an update, kind of, chat, letting folks know about the task forces. I do think it will be like informal, kind of like I've personally never been to an art gallery reception, but like I've seen them in media, and so I think there will be like a little bit of speaking programming, but then mostly like milling around. So we can absolutely have resources, like maybe it's worthwhile for us to put together like a little advertisement, right, for the CEUCC, or like some messaging, and we can have that resource. And I know the Climate Coalition last night recommended that we have more resources available at events like that, just so people, we're not just telling them that the plan is updated, but we're maybe doing a better job of expressing or letting folks know how they can get involved in the work that we're doing. So we will have resources like that available.
Okay, so that's the same as the launch. I think I messed this up in the notes. The event in the fall is the same as the art launch. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I have been to one of those when a friend of mine had it was very informal.
Wonderful. Anything else?
So did we talk? I wasn't at the July meeting. I wasn't able to make it. Did we have a conversation about Somerville Climate Forward then as well? Okay. Because I know I had sent some questions to you, Larry, then, and my guess is they might have come up at that meeting. So I will wait and look at the meeting notes. And then if anything else comes up, I can raise it when we talk to Emily next. Thank you.
Sounds good. Seeing no other hands raised, let's move on to the.
Can I chime in just to, well,
Sure.
First of all, sorry to be late. And is just to Eliza's point just now, I know we sent in some questions regarding next steps for Climate Forward. Is now a good time to revisit that, or would you like to table it for next month? I think we ran out of time last month, because we had a heavy conversation about the bylaws. So whichever is smoothest, but I would love to get a sense of next steps here.
Yeah, actually, that is a good question. What would you recommend?
Me or
No, Ari.
oh, I was
Yeah,
like,
would you like to drill down on those right now? Those are questions are actually not in front of me right now, but happy
Yeah,
to-
yeah, yeah.
and
I
do that.
guess whatever is time sensitive. None of my questions were time sensitive for what it's worth, but I'm wondering if there's anything, Emily, that would be helpful for you as you plan out these meetings, or I'm trying to think of if there's anything urgent from this commission that you'd like to address. And otherwise, I don't want to put Emily on the spot here. So if these can wait until September, maybe we can have that as an agenda item in September, whichever is helpful for this commission.
Emily?
oh, thank you. So thank you. Great question. I might ask that we postpone until September, and then Ari, if it's okay, and I know Eliza, you mentioned you had questions too. I want to look back at my email to make sure I have your questions, and so I'm going to confirm with you, and then I'll be prepared in September. Thank you for your patience.
All right. So moving on to our buildings committee, and this under which we have housed our school decarbonization monthly check-in. I do not have a particular update there. I don't know if Emily does or if there are particular things that anyone would like to raise on that issue. Courtney, go ahead.
So after our last meeting, Commissioner Washburn had clarified for a few of us about the, hold on, the words are the Massive program that was changing and providing technical assistance to municipalities to help both with large scale construction projects like would happen with the Winter Hill and or Brown, as well as in creating phased plans for decarbonizing existing occupied school buildings. And it does appear that Somerville would be eligible for that service, and that they are set up to start that now, even though the Massive next year, coming year's plans haven't been approved. So I did connect people at Massive that I had been in touch with Eric Larson at OSE and Rich Raish. I didn't hear back from anybody. I know that the infrastructure and asset management team is a little short staffed from what I understand, but was hoping to have kind of gotten a little bit of traction going on that. Emily, I don't know. I know it's a peer, perhaps. I don't know. Or does he work under? Does Eric on?
No, Eric's in OSC, so I'm happy to check in.
Okay.
With him. Did you have so you sent him these resources or this connection?
Yeah, I made an I kind of did an internal message about it with Alexis's kind of information that she had gathered and with what I had, and then I made the external introductions, and so it's been quiet on that front.
I can follow up with him for sure.
Okay, great, thanks.
We're on building school decarbonization? Yes. Okay.
That's right.
Did we have public comment on the last item?
I invited attendees to raise their hands, and I will.
Okay. All right.
As I will do here too.
All right. As well. Sorry, the worst note taker, double tasker. Okay. Sorry.
Any other question, comment, updates? Courtney, thanks for that. Thanks for the reminder on that. And if any attendees have questions or comments on the efforts to decarbonize schools in Somerville, feel free to raise your hand. In the meantime, seeing nothing, I will move on to the next item on our agenda. Julie, the administration committee, and here, I think there are really kind of three things I'd love to talk about. One is we started a discussion last month on updating our ordinance and in particular drill down on 3 separate dimensions of that. We're a little behind on where we wanted to be, partly on my accord for failing to pick it up until recently, and partly because we're seeking input from the city solicitor, and that hasn't come in yet as well. So we don't have a revision to put in front of you, and hoping to do that for September. And also we've heard from the mayor's office that we'll be pushing back the actual presentation of the ordinance to city council until later in the fall. With that said, I don't want it to delay some of the other things that we've been talking about, notably so one thing I'd like to do is, if you have further reflections on our conversation from last month about the ordinance, definitely open to it. And then I'd also like to just chat about about subcommittees, because I know that's come up in the past. We deferred it to this part of the process, but this is getting delayed, so why don't we start talking about that, I think. So first, the reflection on the revision to our ordinance, the way our mission is framed, as well as and in particular the points about composition of the commission. If you have further reflections, we can also share the draft on screen if that's helpful.
We haven't seen anything since the last discussion, right?
Correct.
So there's not
Correct.
necessarily much
That's correct.
more to say on my end until I see the next one.
And I'll sort of similarly punt it. I didn't attend the last call, so I don't know what you guys talked about, but I will wait and see the notes and see where we land then. I want to rehash what you guys already talked about.
I think you sent in some questions, some
Yeah.
feedback, which we also walked through. So yes.
Okay, perfect. See, that was all I was going to say anyways.
Not to reopen, it's not a question of reopening topics, but looking at the title, Climate Action Commission. So, I mean, I totally support going to a shorter title than Commission on Energy Use and Climate Change, which is always like a lot of verbiage. But was there any discussion? I forget when that was proposed, as to whether there was any alternative to just climate action. I mean, I don't have any problem with climate action, other than it does seem to frame things in a very particular way. I happen to believe that climate action incorporates a lot of things, but I'm just wondering if, later on it says to address the climate and ecological crisis throughout the community and local government operations. So I guess it's broad enough in the explanation of the advocacy and advisory role that is slightly broader than just what climate action sometimes can convey. I don't remember I know that I missed some meeting as well. If there was a discussion as to whether there were any nice, succinct alternatives that were available as well, or whether that was considered like, you know what, this kind of captures the essence, and everything else is, sustainability, environment, all these things fit in there somehow. I don't know. Was there any other title considered that was deemed,
I mean, were there other titles considered? I'm sure there were. Do others feel strongly about the name? I mean, I think last month we did chat about things like Sustainability Commission. Hello, Director Blaze. And that were, alternatives like that, recognizing that climate action may not be as descriptive as the mission that followed, or the function that follows describes. But does anyone feel strongly one way or the other, or a third way, a fourth way?
I mean, I can go with as it is. Climate and Sustainability Commission sounds reasonable to me as well, and it's still shorter than climate change and energy use. And
I don't have a preference on what it is at the moment. throw some things out, but I also agree it should be clearer, easier to say. Climate Commission, Climate Action Commission.
Alexis?
I'd suggest maybe opening it for public comment if any of the attendees have thoughts on what would
Yeah.
be accessible language to folks that aren't on the commission but are interested about learning more, have participated.
Mhm.
Fabulous idea. I invite any of the attendees to chime in on what should we call ourselves in the future. Please raise your hand if you have some thoughts there, some strong feelings, even weak feelings. John.
I I don't see what's wrong with Climate Commission. Wow.
Okay.
I mean, I hope you're gonna be active and do things, but climate says it. Clearly, we know what that's all about these days. Anyway.
Yeah, super helpful.
Mm.
Lindsay. Love to hear from you.
I like Climate Commission too.
Look at that. Appreciate that, Lindsay. To the point. All right.
So I know that when I first thought about it, one of the things that crossed my mind was in relation to the commission and the Office of Sustainability and Environment and the city, whether this would be encompassing enough. And for example, I firmly suspect that in the not too distant future, a lot of cities, and in general, the topic of the onslaught of plastic, non-recyclability and all that will become a more burning issue in the next decade or so. Is it anticipated that that's the kind of thing that the OSC is going to be dealing with as well? And would the commission be expected to provide the advisory and advocacy role? And would that fall within the just Climate Action Commission, or, you know, that's kind of where I was pondering.
Yeah, I thought I had the same thought. Sorry, can y'all hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I had the same thought when we were talking about names, and like the intention of this group, and sort of knowing that it exists in a space where we have like the biosafety committee and we have the conservation commission, like the urban forestry committee or commission, and like we have like the bike committee. There's like a lot of different, and I think it's sort of like OSC itself, like we are sort of our own group where we're talking about all of these things, but then we also like sort of infiltrate other groups too, right? And our mission sort of permeates into those other groups. So I think my goal with this ordinance was to keep it like very like broad, in terms of like the things that we cover, just knowing exactly what you said, that, you know, we're calling out like the ecological crisis, and climate and addressing emissions is like one way to tackle like environmental issues of today. But then another aspect of that is like the conservation part. We did our consumption-based emissions inventory. We did our zero waste plan. So I think it's totally like within our charge to address those things. And we work with our partners in DPW and OSPCD to do that. So that's Department of Public Works and Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development. So you know, I think it's totally fair game for us to talk about those things here, and you know, eventually, right, like whether or not they get implemented by this group or our office or, you know, another office, you know, and we do a handoff like we do with so many other things. That's how I kind of envision things going down with that stuff.
Right. So, and I guess one thing that I'm hearing from Ramon is calling it the Climate Action Commission or the Climate Commission feels like a narrower scope than calling it, say, Sustainability or Sustainability Commission or climate. We could just say Climate and Sustainability Commission.
Right.
So I think that's where it is. But I appreciate Christine. I agree with you. I mean, I think the remit is broad and there are so many handoffs, and we also have an urban forestry commission, right? And so that feels like they could overlap with parts of sustainability, right? If you call it just sustainability commission.
No, I mean, obviously, as long as the ordinance or whatever it's called will explain what the scope of the mission is. But it's, it's always good to at least have thought about whether the public perception, a lot of people don't read ordinances or things like that. So, I'm comfortable either way. I just wanted to bring it in because I don't remember, it may have been a meeting where I was not there, whether that was discussed. Because some people say climate action, well, so that's kind of a certain scope. I happen to agree that climate action basically touches on so many things that most people don't think even about. But anyway, I just wanted to go through it in case it hadn't been discussed enough, or in case there was, an alternative that was even better. But
no, I appreciate that, Ramon, and no, that's super helpful. I love your comment about not everybody reads ordinances and all the smiles that came on everyone's face. Kind of
Yeah,
true.
I mean, I was gonna say the same thing, like the sort of broader concept of resiliency. Like, I'd love a very descriptive, broad umbrella, but much to what the folks committee, the community member said, there's something that has a nice ring of, climate commission. I think that's straightforward, and people can assume that sort of sustainability, resilience, all the other stuff comes with it. So.
Super. So we're still on the first line of the ordinance. Oh, Grace, I see you raise your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in with what people have said. To me, if you say the word climate these days, you can talk about weather, but when you say climate, it encompasses climate change, sustainability, everything that you've been talking about. And I think most people see it that way.
Mm.
That's
my helpful. And Alexis.
Okay, not to belabor this, but I do like Climate Action Committee because I think some of the questions that are coming out of Somerville Climate Forward are, what are we actually going to do to make it a reality, and what steps are we going to take? How are we going to make it actionable? And so I think that does sort of situate us as a more active group versus passive and reactive to things. Like, we're trying to be proactive, move things forward, shuttling information around and things like that, and getting people to come to events and raise awareness. So I think it just signals sort of what we want to do.
I agree with Alexis. I agree that if it's going to be focused on climate in the title, that it'd be climate action as opposed to just climate.
I second climate action because Climate Commission, shortened to CC, overlaps with City Council, whereas CAC doesn't have any confusing alternatives. And yes to what Alexis said.
Small details matter.
For all good reasons. So I just want to pause here. I know like I would suggest that we, as a group of 3, 6, 9, 10, 11 people, 12 people, no, 11 people, don't adjudicate every line of this ordinance live. However, I would love, I'm working with Christine and would love as well, an accountability partner for myself to concentrate on this. And so if anyone is interested in helping think these things through, would appreciate the help. And if I hear no one, I may just call somebody this week.
Specific things or
Just in talking through some of the feedback that we got and
Oh, okay.
on
Processing the.
I'll
processing.
volunteer, Larry. I mean, I say that sort of hesitantly since I missed the conversation last meeting, so I don't want to open a can of worms or negate a lengthy conversation that you had, but I'm
It's
also
all
happy to be a
recorded.
sounding board.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't promise to have listened to it before.
All right.
we-
Thank you, Eliza. I would appreciate that. I think it'd be super helpful for me.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to do is today is talk a little bit about committees and subcommittees. I deferred that conversation, but we probably should start to address that now. Knowing that we are going to be expanding to some degree, and so we may not be able to fill all the committees that we do talk about now. We can at least say like what are our hopes and dreams. Yeah, so I mean I'll just pause now. Well, I think the committees that we currently have are the Climate Forward Committee. Well, it was the Outreach Committee, which became the Climate Forward Committee, I think, and then the Buildings Committee, the Administration Committee, and a Policy Committee. Beyond municipal policy, but including kind of understanding what's going on at the state and potentially federal levels. So I'll pause there and take in any thoughts you have on what committees should exist and how we might structure them.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear from OSC. Given the thinking that you're doing and the planning that you're doing for the task forces and proceeding on implementation of the Climate Forward, what will be the minimum subcommittees or committees that you would feel like would be really helpful to you?
Yeah, I think the ones that we had
known so
before
far.
were great. Particularly, I think they really worked when people were
Can't hear
like
you.
active in them. Oh, you can't hear me? No?
I can hear
We
you.
can
It's
hear
fuzzy
you.
for a
We can
second.
hear you.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. So yeah, I think the committees were really great, especially when they were really active. So like the policy committee, like if I had, like, for example, the stretch energy code draft changes just got released today, like that would be something that I would probably, email out to that group and say like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And then we would kind of like ping pong, a couple emails back and forth, and then, we would incorporate what made sense into like comment if we decided to do that from the city side. And then I think the Climate Forward the Outreach Committee was really helpful too when they were doing the CCE, the Community Choice Electricity Materials, the last time the contract was updated, and now it's being updated this year again too. It's updating in December, so we're redoing our outreach materials. And I think it would be really helpful to get, and I think that Emily might have mentioned this already too, but to have like involvement from the commission in our community engagement. We have so many events coming up and things that we do. And Naomi is just one person, and it's always more fun to do outreach events with more people, and to I think one of the strengths of this group is just like the wide networks that people have, not just with activists, but with neighbors and community members all over the city. So I think that's a real strength of that outreach committee. And then the administration committee, to Larry's point, can help with like the ordinance and the bylaws, you know, as written in the draft ordinance, we would be required to pass those or, you know, draft them up within 6 months of the ordinance passing. So there's definitely some work to do there. And then of course, like if we want somebody to be assigned like meeting minutes, that could be something that we consider too as part of that administration group. So yeah, I think that's and buildings of course was great because Liz was awesome and would help. She helped get the specialized code passed in Somerville for sure. So you know, to the extent that folks are interested in, you know, working on things like that, and kind of be the on-call expert when we need some help last minute. That was super helpful too. So I liked the groups as they were, but totally open to new ideas and more or less. And I saw that Courtney had her hand raised before I started rambling on, so I want to throw it to her.
Oh no, that was great. I was gonna say for building, we talked about the buildings subcommittee a little while back, and I am happy to be a part of that with others.
was just
Liz
gonna-
was Liz was so helpful that you hired her away from us. So sorry, Eliza, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think, you know, I don't want to say like, let's not overthink it, but to some extent, you know, part of what I think has been so useful with the committees is that they, you know, their workload was able to sort of ebb and flow and was able to sort of, because they were broad enough, they could transition, you know, to different topics as it became, you know, relevant or necessary. So I guess I would sort of caution us from making them any more specific than they are now. And, you know, acknowledge that I think there were, you know, I think people sat on more than one. And so if they all were busy at the same time, it would be, you know, less manageable. And so having them have a little bit of fluctuation made sense. And I really agree, you know, with your point, Christine, that the outreach, I mean, when I think about the sort of charge of this commission, I think that's one of the biggest sort of concrete and tangible ways that we can contribute. So, you know, the outreach committee might not be the only ones doing the outreach, but they can sort of help organize it, plan for it, and then, you know, recruit and connect different commission members to activities. So I you know, if it's not broken, maybe we don't need to fix it. Maybe this is a good, you know, roster of committees going forward, and we can evaluate if a need arises that doesn't fit squarely into one of these, if we need to come up with another one.
So, so I think one of the things I'm thinking is we're not trying to formalize into language that goes into.
Sorry, Ramon, you're breaking up.
Or are we just thinking, you know, we've had these. Wow. Can you hear me if I speak slower?
Yes, now we
We can hear you now, yes. I don't know if it's because you're speaking slower or not, but we can hear you now.
Okay. Anyway, ability, there aren't that many members. I know that the proposed membership is going to be expanded, but following up with what Eliza was saying, you know, as things become a priority, there are only so many of us that can, you know, we can't serve on 2 or 3 committees that are active all the time. So I'm pretty perfectly comfortable with just having an ad hoc committees that are, you know, based on the ones that we've had with whatever twists we found to be useful, but that we keep in mind at any given time how many people there are that can be active, even if it's just one.
Super.
In the interest of being able to get things done.
Julie, I think I saw you about to jump in.
Yeah, I guess I was gonna pick up on that point of narrowness. I guess I almost feel like they might be a little too narrow for the expanded charge of the commission. And maybe I guess I might feel like there actually is some gaps with how specific they are. I mean, I guess buildings is the most specific of them. Policy is pretty broad and outreach is pretty broad, but I guess I would see some gaps more in, you know, the area of resilience and, you know, resilience, green infrastructure, nature-based solution type work areas. Another gap I would see is equity areas. And I think buildings, if that was buildings and infrastructure or something, maybe that might, because buildings is just one. I mean, I get where we were going with it, and I think these came from kind of a visioning exercise we did and a grouping exercise we did, and they made sense at that time. But yeah, just reading the new charge in the ordinance, it feels limiting to me for these to be our committees, I would say.
Yeah, that's helpful. I'll also just name, Eri and Alexis, I'd love to hear from both of you in a second as well, if you wouldn't mind. There was a thought that was shared at some point that that maybe we should have a subcommittee for each of the 5 focus areas of the new Somerville Climate Forward Plan, and those are buildings and energy, community health and resiliency, natural resources and waste, transportation and mobility, and leadership. So that's one, and leadership is a very broad focus area, but so that's one formulation, and we don't need to necessarily be strict about those 5 either, but we could sort of like mix and match and pull some of those as well. Alexis.
I was actually going to make that suggestion of what you were just saying, Larry, to align it with Climate Forward.
I like that idea a lot. I guess back to Ramon's point earlier, I think part of this hinges on what the charge of each subcommittee is going to be. Like, for example, if we have a leadership subcommittee building on the Somerville Climate Forward, is the charge of this leadership subcommittee, for as an example, like to identify are we having a strong role in like keeping track of progress on Somerville Climate Forward? Are we having, you know, regular briefings with OAC and other related departments? Are there opportunities for the subcommittee to identify, you know, potential petitions or recommendations to city council, or whatever it is? I think the last thing we want is to have a subcommittee that doesn't is interested in, passionate about a topic, but doesn't have like an outlet toward it. So I would recommend pairing the discussion of which subcommittees there are to what is OSC, like how are we supporting OSC at the end of the day, and the mayor, and what are the specific responsibilities and charge of the subcommittee, so that we were able to say without the subcommittee the city would not be able to do X. And I feel like some subcommittees are more clear in terms of what the charge might be. Like buildings is a great example. There's a clear path to advocacy. There's a clear point on the city side. I think that's less so the case for other subcommittees. So I don't think we need to resolve this just yet. But I think if we have a subcommittee in life to pair that with, whose point from OSC, what are we what at the end of 2024, what do we want to come out of this?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think the policy subcommittee has always sort of figured out or had a little bit of an identity crisis around where their momentum should go. And, you know, it was a legacy of an older request, but I like what you suggested.
I mean, and you could look at the leadership focus area as a superset of what was policy, right? Because the leadership does include engagement on state policy, for example. So you could argue that is an evolution of the policy subcommittee. Or as Ari says, if there isn't an outlet for it, then maybe it doesn't need to exist. And I would say, like, if we had a subcommittee for each of those 5 areas, and then we tried to do an outreach subcommittee and an admin subcommittee, if we had 7 subcommittees and 13 people, like, we're going to be stretched pretty thin. So so maybe we can be selective about some of the climate forward focus areas, but make sure that we do give support where OSC might need support,
Yeah, I think that's yeah, support and not at all attempting to play a staff role in any way, shape, or form. I think that should be like we don't need to. I guess that would maybe be, and obviously, Christine, you guys should weigh in directly on this, but I think that might be the only concern with matching the structure exactly, I guess, is if I mean, they have the plan, they have the task force together to work on it, and they're gonna implement it, and we're not, like, our job isn't like overseeing that or tracking that or keeping keeping tabs on that. Our job is supporting various things. So I think that might be, I don't know, that could be just a potential like tricky area I would worry about if we were matching it exactly, because the one thing that was nice about the current setup is it did also really lean into the strengths of the commission. And maybe that's tricky because that's such a moment in time that you select those. But I think all of the examples that Christine gave of, these were things I could reach out to the committee, get feedback on, and it could be super actionable. That seems like a model of work that really helped, I guess. Or model of work that was productive. So I don't know, I guess, yeah, Christine, you should share your thoughts. I don't need to speak for you, but I'd worry about that.
No, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I just want to note too, just in case there was any confusion too, like, because I know we were just talking about the ordinance and sort of shifted into talking about subcommittees, but they are like 2 separate items on the agenda because like the subcommittees would not be embedded in the ordinance. We're just sort of talking about them. So even if it's just a moment in time, it's like very flexible. It's not going to be set in stone in the ordinance. So, and to your point, Julie, yeah, like when we first made and to Ramon's point, when we first made the subcommittees, it was to fill gaps in what we needed the most. So buildings are our largest source of emissions. We had that strength on the committee on the commission at the time. So, and there was a lot of stuff to do around it. So, we were getting that support from the commission, same with outreach. And then I think administration was sort of intended to do what we're doing now, which is updating the ordinance and then and drafting some bylaws. I can't remember what the other 2 were now that I'm going through them. Policy was super helpful because, from time to time, and especially in those years, for whatever reason, I think it was because of the specialized code, there was like a ton to comment on. But in any given year, there's the 3-year plan, there's code upgrades, there's legislation, there's other regulations, like fossil fuel free was one of them, or like or there's new ordinances that the city's going to be implementing. So I think like that's what the policy group can weigh in on. And again, that was Aladine's specialty. So to the point of, that was a different commission, right? That was a different we had 3 other members or so there at that time. So, is there some group of subcommittees that might better reflect the strengths that we have on the commission now, that could help the city reach our goals? I think like the ones that Julie mentioned are all goals that are in our climate forward plan and all that we're really looking forward to getting started on, and could definitely use all the help we can get on. So would love to think through, what new subcommittees are that better reflect this group. And then to the point of eventually going to the 5, or adding on the 5 groups. I just want to make sure she's not eating anything she's not supposed to. The dog, oh, that is not Noah. I would just say that I think that's a really good idea. And I would just flag that I think once we expand the commission, that will become a lot more possible, because to the point of, with people on multiple commissions, wanting to make sure that like folks get, feel like they can meaningfully contribute to those subcommittees they're on. Maybe that's something that we consider then, but defer to you guys too. Those are just my thoughts, but this is a really good conversation. Thank you.
I would also, again, invite any of our attendees to comment as well if you think that that we should form committees. We have, when we have formed committees in the past, we have there at different times we have formed committees that have been a combination of commission members and public and non-commission members who live in Somerville. So yeah, welcome all input as well from attendees and from anyone else on this commission.
No, I'm glad we're having this conversation and clarifications, and I see a lot of overlap in points of Alexis, Julie, Liza, Eric. I think basically whatever setup of proposed committees, I think the essence really is always being mindful of 2 things. One is, what is OSC in following up on Climate Forward? What are the medium and long-term areas that they feel can use some support? And also periodically there are things that come up where they need, a little bit more assistance right away. But it's always going to be assistance, not like the assistance you can get from city staff and all that, because we're not working full-time on the commission or anything like that. So I think prioritizing the evolving needs of OSC in relation to Climate Forward should be the driving force, and being flexible in managing that, but also consistent with the advisory and advocacy. The big picture of the commission is to always have the flexibility that if there are things that are not part of what's actually actionable right now, but that the commission feels, or members of the commission feel like these are things that we or someone should be thinking about in parallel with what's being done, that we also leave the flexibility for either within the committee structure or outside by ad hoc having temporary committees. I don't know. Flexibility, I think, is the key, and recognition of the resources and time available. That's
super. Thanks, Ramon. Ramon, are we losing you at 8?
Oh, good reminder. Yeah, I'm
not kicking you out.
No. And this is one of the meetings that I've been able to engage, stay focused more than last 1 or 2. So I'm looking forward to reading and seeing the remaining of the next half hour or so. So
we'd love to
enjoy
have you
it.
stay if you can. So I don't at all.
I know, but I hear the voices that I need to join. So thank you, and have a good evening, and have a good discussion.
Thanks. Super helpful.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? I mean, as Christine noted, this isn't going to be captured in the ordinance. I would expect that if anything, we could encode some, if not some or all, in bylaws that we may end up drafting, but also we can keep them as ad hoc as well. So All right, seeing no other comments, why don't we move on to talk about some grants that are out there and some possibilities for how the commission may help, or some grant proposals, that is.
Oh, yeah, thank you all. So I wanted to talk through 2 grant proposals. Just for time's sake, I'll probably start with the Environmental Protection Agency one. So this is the Community Change Grant. We're looking into applying for this one. It's to sort of revive our GRIP grant application from earlier this year. Now that, it's been about 7 months since we applied for that, or submitted a concept paper, and we got recommendations back from the Department of Energy to like make it more technical and for the most part, and more, and have a better understanding of how it would be replicable. We have done a lot of research with our consultant Bureau Happold on what it would take to electrify Somerville's homes in terms of closing that gap between the electric capacity that's in the street and how to get it into homes and what that would actually look like. So I think that we have a much more kind of manageable and more cost-effective plan now, and we have lots more drawings and plans and resources to support an application. And we're also looking ahead towards like the future and wanting to make homes safer and more energy efficient, especially rental units in multifamily buildings. So I think that there's a good way to kind of marry those two. So this is it's called the Community Change Grant, and it's between $10 and $20 million, and there's no match required, but we do need to find like a partner to work with us on this. So we are in the process of doing that now and have a couple of meetings this week. But if anybody has any thoughts there also, feel free to let me know. But they do accept letters of support for that grant. And I don't have one drafted currently, but I think the idea that we were talking about with Larry was maybe empowering, 1 or 2 folks from the commission, speaking of the subcommittees, to help out with, we can even draft the letter, but if the commission wants to empower somebody or even just empower the city, if the capacity isn't there either, to like draft the letter of support and like approve it, or if the city winds up drafting it, then kind of reviewing it, adding any feedback, and then kind of saying it's approved per the commission. That would be super helpful for that application. So I wanted to put that out there. And then there's kind of an asterisk with that one too. I'm also having a conversation with Boston and Cambridge this week about that grant, and also because they were with us on the GRIP grant too. But they also brought up the idea of submitting a concept paper for the Connected Communities grant. Also around like electrification and electric rates. So a little different and a little more squishy. I'm not really sure what to think there. And it's just a concept paper. So, letters of support would probably be accepted like they were for the GRIP grant, but I don't, it wouldn't be like a full application. It would just be the concept paper submission. And that's due like next week. so that's a pretty tight turnaround too. So it'd sort of be the same thing, kind of like maybe like empowering a couple folks to work with the city on something like that, if the commission was interested in supporting either of these for the city.
Sorry, Christine, does one preclude the other?
No.
What is
like
this?
we can apply to both. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
What the second one, the funding mechanism? I missed the funding mechanism for the second one. Is that also EPA or is that something else?
I have to check.
Okay,
That is Department of Energy.
okay.
I mean, I think
I'm
that sounds
good.
great, and I'll say certainly from a capacity perspective, if you wanted to draft something up, I'm sure the commissioners would be enthusiastic about that. And then, I mean, I do think, you know, either signatures or a motion to sort of approve it as stamped by the commission, you know, would be good.
And Christine, happy to offer up any capacity or support. This is like personally very interesting. So if you want to loop me in, happy to help.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you both.
Eliza, the way I think that we imagined it is essentially we have a vote here to empower Eri to
Great.
to deal with it. No, to write a letter of support on behalf of the commission for both of those opportunities. For either or both of those opportunities. That is not the correct wording for the motion, so someone will have to concentrate a little harder for that.
This is, yeah, I think that this will be, yeah, we can draft it, like our grants team has been incredible this year. They've gotten us over, I think it's close to $1.3 million in grants so far, like, and counting. I say that because we have a couple of grant applications out there, and they helped us with our fossil fuel free application too. So we are, yeah, I'm happy to have the support, and Eri, you know, if the commission votes to do this, like, I'm happy to work with you, and, you know, however much you want to contribute, and, you know, if it's like drafting or if it's like review, we can totally figure it out.
Do you want to talk about the USDA grant as well?
Sure. This one is not accepting letters of support, but I think this is sort of just an FYI. This is a compost. We're going to propose an expansion of the composting pilot. So one of our strategies with getting the money from that city council approved, it's $350,000 for a pilot program. Our idea is to focus it in 3 neighborhoods in the city that have been most ravaged by rat issues, because composting can reportedly help with rodent control. So we want to help provide some relief there, focus on like income qualifying, or like low income households, or environmental justice neighborhoods too. So we think it's a pretty compelling project, and we would be using there is a match requirement for that. So we would be using the 350,000 to sort of like help match the amount that they can go up to, which I think would not quite double the money, but would nearly double the money, which would mean that we could, because of like economies of scale, we can more than like double the scope of how many households we could serve with the pilot program. And it would be for a 2-year term instead of like 6 months to a year. So it seems advantageous, and you know, it goes along with our initial strategy to try to utilize the funds that we have to leverage for grants that require matches. So that is not accepting letters of support, but I think we just wanted to share it sort of as like an FYI for the commission, just so that you guys knew. Yeah, and Julia is leading that effort with DPW.
Oh, great.
Alexis?
Just a clarification question. So you are going to be putting together a letter of support for the DOE grant or the EPA grant?
Possibly the EPA grant would be the one that we would be definitely putting the letter together for, but assuming that we can find a partner for that one, we've been striking out so far, but the DOE grant, I think that one's like the one that's a little bit more squishy right now. We just started talking about it with Boston and Cambridge. So, and I think both of them have their own ideas. So I think this week on Thursday, I'm going to meet with them and sort of try to come to a consensus and see like what work has been done so far and how we can, I think there's like strength in numbers with this, and there's things that Somerville could provide to an application, like, because we've been doing a lot of this research already. So hopefully it's a good fit, like whatever they have planned for that. I think one of the things that was thrown out there was maybe looking at like a demand response program, but I literally don't have any other details beyond that. So that one's a little bit more of like a question mark, I think. If but the last time that we submitted a concept paper to DOE, we did provide a letter of support from the commission. So, I think it would be, that kind of appropriate to do it again. But I don't have all of the information, and like, I don't have as much information on that as I do for the EPA one.
So I think, to my knowledge, for the EPA Community Change Grant, that you can't submit additional attachments, including letters of support, other than the ones that are specified in the application instructions. And so I would definitely say take a look at it again, but there's a FAQ posted on the EPA's website. Is updated from May 2024, and they address that question a couple of different times because there's very specific page limits.
Okay. Oh, good. Thank you for saying that. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear her, but she's getting a little restless. Okay.
What was the name of the DOE grant program?
That one is called Connected Communities.
Connected Communities.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome public comment as well. From any attendees? I would also, I guess, entertain a motion for Ari to draft and sign letters of support on behalf of the commission in support of the city's EPA Community Change Grant and DOE Connected Communities Grant as appropriate.
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Commissioner Wood. Do I have a second?
I will second it.
Second from Commissioner Johnston. We have discussion on that motion specifically. And I am noting Alexis's comment about whether it's appropriate, but we can tackle that.
Yeah, I did find where it says no. So that could actually be an answer there. At first they say there's no requirement to submit letters, which is like, okay, there's no requirement, but we could. And then a couple of questions later, it says, don't. So this is good to know. I'll send this to the grants team to make sure that they're aware of this too.
Okay. In the interim, we can still empower Ari to be ready to do it just in case, because since we won't have another meeting between now and when it's due.
Okay.
Sorry, Ari.
I'll take all the power. And then I'm happy to withdraw my application if necessary. Thank you, Alexis.
Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Or say aye. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I'm just looking to see how to raise it. Hand. So all opposed. Well, that was unanimous. So thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on our agenda, so we did
Was,
have,
sorry, was there anything on this EPA network of neighborhood transformers? I didn't have any notes on that one.
Sorry, that's like the idea for the community change grant. So it's the same thing.
Oh, okay. That's the name. That's our name of the application. I
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, sorry.
So on the policy side, the legislative session ended with some disappointment. Choosing my words here. I don't know if so. I mean, the update here on the state omnibus bill is that there is no state omnibus bill. There is still some, to my knowledge, some advocacy around doing something in the kind of lame duck session. I have no idea whether anything will happen. Lame duck's part of the session. I have no idea if anything will happen between now and the end of the year or before when the new session starts. I don't know if anyone else has particular intel on whether there will be any movement in the state in the next 4 months. Great, great, good news.
We have Lindsay.
Lindsay.
Yeah, my understanding from Mothers Out Front, can you hear me?
Yes.
I did unmute. Okay. My understanding from the Mothers Out Front legislative team is that the only way it will come up in the lame duck session happening later in the year is if behind the scenes a consensus can be worked out between the House and Senate.
Right.
I am interested in the fact that Somerville had passed a resolution supporting all of the future clean heat proposals. And I wonder if I'd like to be in touch with you about whether there's any role in the commission submitting a letter of support for those issues. I think we brought it up at the very end of the session, but it was, not in sync with your meeting schedule, so it wasn't something that could be done. But I'd be interested. Are you all familiar with the resolution that the council passed?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I'm not sure whether it's appropriate for the executive branch and or the commission to step in and say, hey, look, folks, our city has come down clearly on the side of these legislative changes.
It would not be inappropriate
Yeah, I would think.
to use a double negative.
Well, I may be in touch with you about that.
I would welcome it.
Okay.
Yeah, particularly in instances where we particularly feel like that kind of advocacy would be would help to move leadership.
Okay, great.
Anything else on the policy front, and again, any other comment from attendees or questions, comments, hopes? Seeing nothing, we will defer approval of the July meeting minutes until the September meeting. So we'll push that out. The September meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 10th. Hopefully that works for y'all. Okay, looks good. Any new business?
I have one administrative question, and we lost the staff. I was going to mention this to them about whether for our note taking, we can use something like Otter or another AI note thing. I think someone might have brought this up before, but I know that it is quite an effort to take the notes and participate, and then kind of feels like a different type of meeting when you're the one doing it. And I know we all, yeah. So I've heard good things about the product. I don't know if others have used it or if they're, it doesn't have to be Otter. It's just the only one I know of. Oh, I could bring it up again. Hi, Christina, I was just asking for under new business if it was possible for us to look into using a note-taking AI system like Otter or another, whatever company, doesn't matter, to help take that load off of the commissioners, because I was saying it does kind of take, it's hard to participate and take notes at the same time.
Yeah. We do. I think that our Zoom now actually does some
Oh, Zoom does
AI.
it?
It's on.
Yeah,
I see the
yeah,
star blinking up there.
yeah.
Oh.
It does. Yeah, so it has like the 5 takeaways, and then it has like a transcript. But I should also just note too that, and I'm sorry, my internet had cut out for that discussion. So I want to just make sure I didn't miss anything on the clean heat. But yeah, so we can definitely share that. And I think with the new ordinance too, like we can kind of empower, potentially like the staff liaison to do the note taking on the city side, which would be nice.
That would be great too. I've wondered about that.
Yeah. I think that's actually what Julia does when she is here, right? I think that she had been doing that at least a couple times. And I should also
She
just
may
note
have
too that,
also been doing it, but
yeah.
That's
we
right.
had assigned someone those times.
That's right.
She might have
Okay.
chosen on her own, but
Okay. What was I gonna say? For the notes, I think it's like a 90-minute meeting too. It's like, I think like 2 pages is like good. Like it doesn't have to be a transcript of everything because we're going to post the recording. You know what I mean? So if we can we just say like, not everything everybody says needs to be like attributed to like the person that said it. And it can also be like, the commission had like a discussion about this topic and sort of be like a little bit more general too. And then like if there's action items, we can note those. But I think that this group is so diligent about the note taking. Sometimes it can be like 5 pages though for like a 90-minute meeting. And there's like a lot of content here, but I just, want to remind folks that, we do post the recordings now. So it does not need to be a transcript of everything that was said.
I'm gonna come to Alexis in a moment, but would it be possible to check on the sort of legality of using an AI note-taking tool?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it just does it. Like I can't turn it off, I don't think.
I guess what I mean is in fulfillment of the open meeting law, is that adequate? Is that acceptable to use that?
Sure, yeah.
So I think it might be a question for the state or for city council, city solicitor. Alexis?
I was going to request that we get an updated note-taking template. So I think the one that I have is from like a couple commissioners ago. So it just is missing people's names spelled correctly and things like that. So and certainly when and if new members get added and with the name change and everything, that would be helpful.
Good idea. Thank you.
Sure.
Julie, wow, let's look at this. Everyone's got something to say now.
About note taking. Hot topic. Hot topic. Yeah, I think the other thing on the AI might be, I don't know, I wonder if attendees would. I don't know. People have different attitudes about it. I guess I wouldn't want that to deter anyone from attending the meeting, if that should become a concern. But maybe there's no getting around it. And like you said, Christine, you just can't, it's just there. We don't even have the option to turn it off. But I'm really glad to hear what you said, that the notes, because I think, at least since I've been on the commission, they've gone back and forth between being super detailed versus being kind of what you're describing.
Yeah.
And just for me, I know for me, if I miss a meeting, it's actually easier for me to read. I don't, if it's not a transcript style, I don't necessarily need to like walk through the discussion. If it's just kind of like a summary of the main points, I feel like it actually, for me, helps me get caught up on what happened at the meeting a little easier. And I do think it definitely makes it easier to take notes and participate when you're, so that's great to hear. Thanks for mentioning that. I did go with the old style for this one because I saw that that's how people had been doing it, but.
Eliza.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in and say, to Christine's point, we already have the transcript because it's recording and capturing it, in verbatim. And I do think, I don't know Otter, but I use Copilot and it's very effective. You can have it summarize notes based on action items or specific themes or with varying level of granularity that you want. And so I guess I would encourage us, if we can outsource that to machine learning, and keep them a little bit more detailed, because to Julie's point, I do actually think not the transcript, but with a little bit more meat on the bones is really helpful for me. If I miss a meeting too, I will read the meeting minutes and feel like I was there. So I don't want to curtail it too much, and if we can find a way to not have to take them ourselves, that's great.
Yeah, I do feel like it was, I don't know, maybe it was Stephen Moore set the tone, 5 years ago with his notes that were super detailed.
Juliet had 3 lines. It was literally like, we talked about buildings, we talked about the community. So it was a varying levels.
Yeah, that's helpful. But we should look into the legal aspect of fulfilling open meeting law. But beyond that, yeah, that's a good thought to explore ways to lighten the load, and really enrich participation while we're here.
Yeah, and I am involved in conversations at like the city level about AI, like, and how we use it. So like I can also mention it with that group too.
Any
One of
other?
the things that
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just side note, one of the things that came up was like the energy usage for AI. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts there, but maybe we could put on an agenda for another time. If I would be curious to see if folks have any thoughts on this new sort of paradigm shift that's going on.
Yes, let's table that. That could be a longer discussion than. We can add it to the agenda if you'd like.
Sure. If other folks would be interested in it, yeah.
Okay. Any other new business? All right.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, 2 things really quick. Did I miss anything on clean heat? And
Oh,
the other thing was for the subcommittees, are we just tabling that to next time? Probably, like just continuing that next time.
yeah. So on the first question, well, on both questions, I think you'll just have to read the minutes, right? But no, I'm just kidding. So on the first question, I think Lindsay said she would be in touch about the potential of writing a letter of support and whether it would be helpful, and she can talk it through. So she may reach out to you or me, or some combination of that. On the other point, I don't know that we left it with next steps around committees. I do think that it might be helpful to come back with a proposal and just say, like, here's how we envision it for the short term, and then how it might evolve through the ordinance. So, once we get to X number of members, we see, how the committee structure will evolve.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. And if anybody has any, if there's any committees that we didn't talk about, like I think like a natural resources committee was mentioned by Julie, like if there's other committees that aren't part of that core like 5 or 6 that we've done in the past, like feel free to just email Larry and I, and we can incorporate that. Cool.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thank you all. I think we are adjourned.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
8:33.
guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.